What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and welcome to my very first Atlanta United full season review. I do this with Chelsea every year, kind of look back at the season as a whole, look at some of the best games, some of the worst games, and players, all that stuff. So, first of all, let's talk about the season in general. And what a great first season. Really, really good start for an expansion team. We came in looking like an MLS team. We didn't look like, oh, just another expansion. No, we were the expansion team to beat. So, we made it into the playoffs. Disappointed not to go further, but it takes away a little bit from the season just because I hate to end on such a poor note, but the rest of the season on a whole, pretty good. And hopefully it's something where we start to get more quality in and we start to bring in, more quality to expand the quality of the league. Because that's something I really want for the MLS. I want it to get better, and the only way it's going to happen is if teams come in and they've got more quality and we can keep getting better quality in. That's how you grow a league. You get teams in that have better quality, that have the ability to compete and win and do very well. That's the only way to get a league truly growing. So, overall, very good first season. Hope for better. We need a bit more depth on our bench because after you get past our first team, the quality does drop off a little bit. But I think over the break, I think we can do very well in getting in a few players. Obviously with the whole MLS kind of transfer problems, transfer stipends or whatever you want to call it, it's very hard to get your team too good because then you're going to have to pay players a bunch of money. But I think at the very least we can get in some players that are MLS quality, players that are good enough to compete. So that way, whenever we have to go off our bench, whenever we lose a starter, the drop off isn't so big. We've still got enough quality out there to compete. So first, let's look at our best games. Guess I'm kind of gonna do like a section thing where first you look at the best games at Bobby Dodd, best games at away, and best games on Mercedes-Benz. So first at Bobby Dodd. Obviously, started off a little bit frustrating with a loss on the first day with New York. But the thing about it is, despite that loss, it still wasn't a bad game overall. We played pretty well. We dominated most of the game, just gave away 2 late goals that were sloppy. But the atmosphere was great. It was the first time playing in the MLS, and everybody was so excited about it. The crowd was jumping. It was exciting. Very first game, and we're all standing throughout the entire match. I don't know if the people on the side did, but behind the goal, we were standing the entire time. And it set a trend throughout the entire season. We stood. We did not sit. So, it was very exciting. And Bobby Dodd kind of became our home for a little bit. It wasn't solid every match, but it was pretty good. Whenever we came home, it was exciting. We were winning. We were dominating most games. So, if I had to choose a best game from Bobby Dodd, I'd probably have to go with the San Jose game on the 4th of July. Not just fireworks overall, it was fireworks on the field too. Haha. Heard that joke so many times. But it was the first time that we had gone down and then fought back and won. Because we started off pretty poor that game. We gave away an early goal. I can't remember if we tied it up and then went down again or if they went up 2-0. But whatever the case, came back and won it 4-2. Very, very exciting game overall. Not the most clean game, but it showed that we had that fight and the desire to win games when it was difficult. Unfortunately, that did not always translate, as we saw later in the season, but it was one of the ones that made us feel like we have the ability to fight for a result, to fight for every game. Best away result probably have to be the Columbus game, surprisingly enough, the ones that beat us in the playoffs. We beat at their place, 2-0, and it was a very good game. We controlled the game for the most part. We finished our chances, and then we defended very well. It was a clean sheet on the road. It was a win on that. It was a very good game. And it's one of the few away games that I can remember feeling like that was great. We had very few away games where I was excited to watch. Most of them were dull. They were boring. It felt like our team wasn't there to play. So I just remember that one being like, that was a good game. We won. We did it very cleanly. And then finally, the best game at Mercedes-Benz. This one's a little bit more difficult because we did have quite a few really good games. But if I had to choose, Obviously, the New England result would be the most obvious choice, but for me, I think it would be the very first game against FC Dallas. It was a 3-0 win. It was very comfortable. We dominated the game, created chance after chance after chance. And it was the first time there. It was the first time being in the stadium. The atmosphere was great. Everything about it was just so awesome. I remember that feeling, and it's something that'll never go away. That feeling of being in a new stadium with everybody being there and everybody just feeling the atmosphere and the hype around the club. It was awesome. So even though the New England result technically probably was a better game, I think for the atmosphere and the feeling of it alone, I'm going to have to go with FC Dallas game. So that's it for all of the best games. Now we have to get on to, unfortunately, some of the worst games. So the worst result at Bobby Dodd definitely has to be the DC United game, 3-1 loss. Just a dull game overall. DC United came to play very defensively, came to stifle the crowd, and they did a good job of it. They played their game plan to perfection, and we couldn't find an answer for it. Not surprisingly, worst away game, also against DC United. Not the first one, the second one. It was the 1-0 loss, mainly just because it was a boring game to watch. It was 1-0. They scored a late goal that was just a sloppy defensive goal, and we didn't create anything. It was so boring. It's like what all Americans think soccer is. That's the game that they've watched. There's like, oh, it's a 1-0 game. How boring can you get? That's what they've watched, is that game right there. Because if you watch like a 1-0 game, like where chances are flying in, but keepers are making great saves, defenders are making blocks. Man U versus Tottenham last weekend was probably a good example of that. Not the best example of it, but still a pretty good game overall. And it only ended 1-0. That's a good game. This one, though, was just everything that Americans love to complain about soccer. So, yeah, definitely the worst game we had away, and we had quite a few bad results away. I mean, I think, how many did we win away? Like 3 maybe this season? It was not good for us when we went away from home. And then the worst game at Mercedes-Benz, difficult choice. I don't think Columbus was a poor game for us. I think we were the better team. We just couldn't finish. It has to be between Minnesota and Orlando, because Minnesota, obviously a loss, and one we definitely should have won. And then Orlando was just, we gave away 3 goals. We finished 3 chances very easily. We were the better team, but we gave away 3 goals. So it's kind of hard to look at it and say, which one was the worst result. But I think I'm going to go with the Minnesota game, just because even though we were missing some of our starters and we weren't against Orlando, so you might think, well, then Orlando was probably the worst game. But no, I think despite the fact that we were missing some of our starters, we were missing Miguel, we were missing Joseph, we were missing Brad in goal. I think despite that, it was still just, you should beat Minnesota. You should beat Minnesota United at home. That should not be a loss. It shouldn't even really be a draw. And so to lose is just like, that is horrible. So I think I'll have to go with Minnesota United for our worst result at Mercedes-Benz. But moving on to more positive things, let's talk about some of our best players. So I'm going to go sort of down the field. Best offensive player, obviously it's kind of between 2 people. You got Joseph or you got Miguel. For me, though, I'm definitely going to have to go with Miguel, because I think even in games where he's not very effective, when he's trying to take on too many people, trying to do too much on his own, at least he's working. And that's something I can't say about Joseph. Joseph is kind of a selfish player. He turns off whenever things get hard. He doesn't really work for the most part. So I just always appreciate a player that's going to work hard, no matter the situation. So for me, our best attacking player of the season has to go to Miguel. You take him out of the team, and you saw what happened. We won like 1 game out of 4. Going on to the best midfield player, should be no surprise if you watched my videos this season. Best midfield player, and for me also MVP of the season, has to be Jeff Larentowicz. Totally underrated player. It's just a brick wall in our midfield. He's not just a brick wall, he's a moving brick wall. Does such a good job at breaking up the play, making sure that the other team can't just run into our defense. Also very good at providing depth and cover for our defense as well. So just overall, I mean, he's such a good player, and nobody even appreciates that. Nobody appreciates what he does in the midfield. So I hope he can continue what he does this season because he is a bit older. So I'm worried that maybe it'll drop off a little bit next season, but we'll see. But if he's still the same player that he was this season, I'm really looking forward to seeing what he's going to do because I think he's a key player for us in the midfield. And then finally, best defensive player, got to be Michael Parkhurst. I mean, there really shouldn't be any doubt. He was our best defender. You know, he reads games very well. He intercepts the ball very well. He puts in great challenges. He's a leader through his actions. Not really a vocal leader, but I mean, just does such a good job at putting in strong defensive challenges in situations where he really shouldn't be the victor. You know, he's being outpaced. He's being outmuscled. It doesn't matter. He's still putting in a challenge to put the striker off. He works hard everything he does. So I really do appreciate everything he's done for us this season. I hate the fact that he and Jeff couldn't make it further in the playoffs because both of them deserve it. But that's it for our best player in each position. Want to give out some honorable mentions as well. So kind of making up my own awards here. 110% award goes to Yamil Assad. He is a player that just constantly works hard. You know, it doesn't matter the situation, he's working hard. I did have my problems with him because he's not very effective most of the time. His passes were kind of off. But I mean, just the work rate to win the ball back, the pressure he puts on midfielders and defenders, it causes a bit of panic and it forces them to have to play quick and under pressure. So there aren't a lot of players out there who work as hard as Jamil does, and I see it and I appreciate it. And obviously he's a player on loan, so I hope we can hold on to him because we need that work rate. You know, I still think that taking him off against Columbus was the biggest mistake you could have made and the biggest game changer. So moving on, the best amazing goal scorer goes to Tito. He's a player that I did have some problems with as well, you know, as far as his selfishness. Sometimes he did a little too much on his own. But at the same time, he popped up with some amazing goals this season. You know, just goals that kept us in games, goals that won us games. He was the one to turn to for that. The only problem I have with that is most of the time it took him 20 shots before he finally had that one that was amazing. So he does need to work on his, I guess, shots on target percentage, you know, at least get him on target to make the keeper work instead of just blasting half of them into the crowd. But I still got to appreciate whenever somebody can strike a ball like he does. So I do appreciate that. Another player I want to give some love, got to be Greg Garza. Maybe the award could be something like, you know, best all-around defender, you know, on both sides of the ball because he did provide a lot going forward and defensively. You know, very good at putting pressure on the attackers to make sure, you know, keep them wide. He doesn't have the best speed out there, so he has to be on top of his game to make sure they don't go blazing by him. And on top of that, whenever he gets down the field, he's very good at playing the short game with, you know, players like Emil and Miguel and Joseph. I mean, he did a very good job whenever he got up the field. Just the only hole he had in his game was the fact that he couldn't get back quick enough. But, you know, that was fine because he had enough cover back there defensively. So, yeah, I really did appreciate everything he did. I thought his injury really hurt us because Chris only brought the attacking side of the game and Mikey only brings the defensive side of the game. So neither one of them were the complete package. So he's another player that's on loan. I hope we manage to hold on to him because we don't really have a player like him right now. So the last player that I want to give some love, of course, Brad Guzan, best keeper. There's no doubt about it. You know, Alec Can did pretty well for what it, you know, first season in MLS, but he just doesn't really compare to the level that Brad's at. You know, he played in the Premier League for a while, definitely deserves more credit than he gets. You know, he's not the greatest keeper of all time. You know, he definitely has made some mistakes in the past, but he works his butt off every game. You know, he's done a very good job of coming in and organizing the defense a lot more. We definitely gave away less goals whenever he was playing back there. So I appreciate everything he did, you know, organizing the defense. I hope he's been working with the other keepers we have at the club to make them better as well, because that's one of the best things you get after bringing in a quality keeper like Brad is not only does he bring a lot on the field, not only does he help us on the pitch, but also if he's working with our other keepers, he's working with younger keepers like Alec, like Not Alex. Because the other Tambakis, that's Alex Tambakis, right? What's the other one? The younger one. He's like 22 or 23 or something like that. Or no, that is Alex. Because Kyle is the older one. I get some of these keepers mixed up. But if he's working with some of these younger keepers, hopefully that means that they're getting better after learning from such an experienced keeper. So, yeah, it can only mean good things for us, and I appreciate a lot of the work that he's done. So, moving on, though, we do have to get into some of the, I guess, not as good players. I don't want to call them bad because I don't want to criticize too much in this video. But there are some players that stood out as just not as good, not quite what we needed this season. So first one has to be Harrison Heath. Played, I think, 2 games this season, and one of them he gave away the ball and led to the final chance of the game, which led to the final goal, which knocked us out of the U.S. Open Cup. Not the biggest deal in the world, but still kind of like, come on. Like, you're entrusted with a few seconds on the field, and you give away the ball that leads to the losing goal. That's pretty bad. He was loaned the next week and then for some reason brought back. Maybe he wasn't good enough to cut it in Sacramento, but whatever the case, definitely not one of our best players. Another player that maybe needs to move on, Tyrone Mears. I don't know. He's not the worst of the worst, but he just doesn't quite have what we need back there. He doesn't quite have what we need defensively. On the attack, his crosses aren't the best. He just feels like he's lacking in both departments just a bit. And I assume we're probably going to get Anton back either on loan or maybe on a buy. If not, hopefully we're going to get another right back in. But I just don't think Tyrone has what it takes to cut it in this league. He's definitely lacking quite a bit. Another player that I think probably need to move on is... I know his name. Now I gotta look it up. This is embarrassing. By the way, I was right. It is Alex Tambakis. Oh, he's 24. That's interesting. Zach Lloyd. I forgot his name. Zach Lloyd just hardly featured in the team at all. Feels like he's just taking up space right now. I saw him for one game and he was awful. It was the Charleston game it was Kennesaw game against Charleston Battery. Just not really good enough. Pretty poor defensively. So yeah, I feel like he's a player we just need to move on so we have more space, I guess. And then the final one that I want to talk about is one that's going to upset a lot of people, and I realize this, but yeah, Julian's got to go. I'm sorry. I know he's created a lot for us this season. He does have a lot of assists and some goals, but I just don't think he fits with our style. And I think there are games that he's getting playing time, but other players who deserve it aren't getting it. Kevin Kratz deserved more playing time than him. I don't know why he didn't get more playing time. Jacob Peterson, another player, very hard worker, should deserve more playing time. Julian just doesn't fit in the style of the MLS because he's not fast enough, he's not quick enough with his touch, and he doesn't help out defensively. And you need players who are going to work their butts off every time they're out there. Kevin and Jacob both bring that every single time. So to see that Julian got to play so much this season and they hardly got to play at all, it is kind of frustrating. And it makes me kind of want him to just sort of, okay, you win Rookie of the Year because you're pretty much the only rookie that was involved as much as you were. Congratulations. Now let's get him out because we need players in here who are going to constantly just work and work and work and have the ability to fit into our team. So, yeah, it is a little bit of a harsh assessment, but I'm somebody who wants to win and wants to win a lot and wants to win trophies, and I just don't think he's got that quality to be there. So that's just my personal opinion. But on the wrap-up, like I said, great first season. It's still disappointing. It still hurts a little bit to think about that playoff game, but I mean, looking back on the rest of the season, there are so many good memories, so many good moments to take from our very first season in MLS. It gets me excited for what's to come. We've got to get better from here, obviously, but it just feels like it's not going to take that much more to get better. We just need some players that are better on the backup. We need players who are going to come off the bench and change games. Once we've got that, I feel like we've got the league. I feel like we're going to win it next year if we can just get a few of those players in. So that's it from me. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on this season? What were your best games, most favorite moments, all that good stuff? Let me know. We can talk about it. Leave a like and subscribe for future Atlanta United reviews. I'll see you guys next season. Peace out.